Hello, it is I, Neela, coming back to you within the span of less than 24 hours, possibly even 12, which is very unlike me and my um, MO of just chronic self doubt. I think I tend to start more things than I finish. And I woke up this morning with an extra day to recover just because this Arctic blast weather that we're experiencing in my neck of the woods is making travel relatively not ideal, especially in the case of like a car breakdown. So I'm gonna stay here for one more day, and I figured as a way to, feel like I'm having some kind of productivity on this day off because capitalism has deeply ingrained the uh, desire against my own actual desire to feel like I'm doing something productive, um, even on days of quote unquote rest. I'm watching my cat knock down two of my medications that I just took. Which, by the way, in terms of autism, there is no cure for autism. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder. It's on a spectrum and it is lifelong. For the people who are diagnosed or never diagnosed with it, it is something that you will live with for the entirety of your life. Okay, quick lazy editing me here. I was just rewatching the video, and because everything is so, off the top of my head, I do often get lost in my own train of thought. So there are a couple places throughout this video where I was meaning to say one thing, and then something caught my attention, and I completely didn't finish a sentence. So what I was remarking on when my cat was knocking off two of my medications was talking about, how autism is a lifelong disorder, neurodevelopmental disorder that there is no cure for. You just are autistic, and there are things, medications that you can take to help manage your, secondary symptoms. Like for me, I have very high anxiety. I've always been a very anxious person, like I will allude to later in this video, and we'll probably talk about a lot more. I'm a very, anal retentive. I don't want to say OCD because I'm not OCD. My grandma was OCD, like to the point of like debilitating obsessive compulsive disorder. My I don't know, like OCD light, if you could say it like that, is more a byproduct of my autism and my need to control, to manage my internal world, because the reflection of the external world very much affects my internal world. So if things are messy on the outside, if the light looks bad, if something looks dark and dank, some people can be unaffected by those sorts of things, but for me, they will directly impact my mental health and my behavior, immediately. So, in addition to trying to keep my spaces very clean and very Neela appropriate in colors that make me happy and in states of organization, I also do take medication, which is what I was trying to talk about, because my cat was knocking them off. And one thing that was made aware to me a couple years before I was actually diagnosed autistic was that it's important that you, if you receive the diagnosis of autism, that you work with a doctor, obviously a psychiatrist in this case, more than likely, that is aware that you are autistic, because the different medications that are prescribed for neurotypicals can behave differently on neurodivergent brains because they are different brains. It's neurodevelopmentally neurological a neurological developmental divergence. So it would only make sense that if our brains operate differently, then the medications that were designed and trialed on probably majority neurotypical brains could have adverse effects for autistic people. I don't know what medications those are. I'm not a doctor. I just know that I was told that at one time by another autistic person who was making me aware that if I did believe I was autistic, to be careful with the medications that this cruddy psychiatrist I was seeing at the time was going to prescribe me, because without taking into account my autism, it could be not a good drug. So that's something to be mindful of. The drugs that I do currently take, which for me have been effective, since last year, and I'd taken them before, but oh no, my battery's low. Is paroxetine, Paxil, which I use. It's mostly as I believe it's an antidepressant, but I use it as an anti-anxiety medication. And then it's an SSRI, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So basically, it slows the serotonin that's being delivered in my brain, so that the receptor can pick up more of it. Otherwise, the I guess reuptake receptor on the original guy will like swipe up everything that hasn't been picked up, and then leaving the other part of your brain without any serotonin. So that seems to have helped me in making me a lot less sensitive and reactive to things. My family has noticed, I have noticed, my emotional regulation is a lot more smooth. It's not to say I don't have bad days or I don't have meltdowns or burnouts or triggers, but it is a lot better than it was before. And previously, when I was on all kinds of bipolar medications, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, anxiety medications, depression medications, like just way too many medications for such a young person, because I was 15 at the time and on like 4 different drugs. The medications I'm taking now are very minimal in their dosage, and I've also been very much an advocate for that because I have a lot of trauma with being medicated and improperly medicated. So I take the paroxetine Paxil at 20 milligrams, which works for me currently. And I also take clonazepam or Klonopin 0.5 milligrams twice a day, to help with basically chronic panic attacks. And the way my psychiatrist explained it to me was that autistic brains prefer routine, and so it is better to take the clonazepam twice a day as opposed to as needed, because then the brain becomes wanting it, and I have noticed it's better if I'm just on it, and it's a very low dose. So even though benzodiazepines are not my personal drug of choice, I can say that they have very much helped to mitigate a lot of the negative side effects that I experience with my sensory processing and my anxiety and just my general autism. The last medication I do take is related to my PTSD. It's Prazosin, and it's a blood pressure medication, and I'm taking 2 milligrams, and it's supposed to help with the parasomnia, because I would wake up crying and sleeping from reoccurring PTSD nightmares. So that's just a brief overview of my current medication. It's not an endorsement, just saying what works for me. I've been on a lot of medications. I made a list of them. Maybe eventually I'll go over them, because most of them were not suited for autism, come to find years later. No wonder it sucks so bad. But yeah, that's what I had meant to say before I got stuck on a tangent, which, again, I did. I can say for myself that while it has been a struggle, it's also all I've ever known, so I don't really know any different. I can't say that objectively being autistic is bad, because I don't know any other way to be, and if I'm honest, I really value a lot of, I guess, what people would consider to be my autistic traits, the things that make me a little bit outspoken at awkward times, a little too honest, a little too blunt or truthful. I think some of my humor that can be a bit deadpan, I can attribute to my autism, because we are funny people. I think sometimes people think that like autistic people are like robots that have no emotions and no sense of humor and are incapable of sin, and it's like, no, we're just not very good at doing those things. Like I don't typically lie, because I can't really lie. Or more often what I'll do is, if I do tell a white lie, I tell on myself. I confess. And this is generally like to my parents, because they're like the only people I talk to. So it's never anything big. It's just like, oh yeah, that day when I said I went to go and pick up something, I actually also stopped and had a coffee. Like, I didn't want to tell you I was having some time alone because I felt guilty about it. But now I'm going to tell you after the fact because I still feel guilty about it, and I'd rather just than me hold on to this weight, But capable of lying, capable of laughing, making jokes. I recognize after I found out that I was autistic, like for sure, that it's not that I don't know if it's that I don't understand sarcasm. I understand its point. I just find it to be cruel. And in my life, whenever I've dealt with it, especially as a kid, like I have an older brother that sarcasm was his way of humor, is his way of humor to this day. And as a kid, especially anytime he would use sarcastic humor on me, I would take it very personally and I would be very sensitive about it and I would cry and I would run away. Like when my aunt sent me a training bra when I was like 10 years old for Christmas, which is a horrible gift to give a shy preteen, but also like an autistic preteen. And I opened up the gift in front of my family and they saw the little bralette I had been given. And my mom was like, "Oh, how nice, your aunt gave you a training bra." And my brother was like, "What are you going to train your boobs to do? Jump through hoops?" And like being really noticed, especially during puberty and like any kind of reference to my burgeoning sexuality and adult body was very, very uncomfortable for me. And that's something I think I should talk about another time because it's an even bigger topic that I'd like to tie to that. But that's all just to say that, I have my own brand of humor, which I think tends to be deadpan. I understand sarcasm. I just find it to be cruel and yeah, just kind of belittling, badgering. I don't appreciate it. I don't find a lot of people funny. It takes a lot to make me laugh, and I know a lot of times what I do as a response to engage with others is to say that's funny instead of laughing, so that I can at least acknowledge that humor was made, even if I don't find it funny enough to laugh about it. I'll try to acknowledge a person's efforts. But anyway, I wanted to make this video because I just wanted to make a video, but there were, I think, a number of things that I could talk about. I was trying to think about really some of the things maybe that made me, looking back as a child, some of what I think were more obvious signs that I was autistic or on the spectrum, even if I was very capable of, to a degree, high masking. Because I was like hyperverbal from a young age. I still displayed, I think, a lot of hallmark symptoms and also some that I think are not well researched or recognized, that in my own kind of digging to find validity in my diagnosis, I made my own discoveries of other doctors, researchers already exploring these sorts of things. So sorry, I made a latte and it's stupid for me to just hold it and not drink it, so. God, I feel so awkward drinking on camera. I really don't like eating and drinking in front of people. But, no one's actually here right now, so I'll convince myself that it's fine. But that's a huge thing that I have to get comfortable around people. Like, it's especially something I hate when I first start dating someone, which is why I've been single forever, because it's like the process of eating around people is such a sensorily overwhelming experience, and it's so personal and gross, and I have to feel very comfortable with the person to really be able to eat and enjoy eating and not be very mindful of how I'm eating and what I'm doing. I'm basically not eating in the first couple dates that I meet somebody. I'm just pretending to eat, and much more behaving actually like a robot. So, some of the things that I think were more obviously representative of my autism that were missed as a child was while I don't think maybe all autistic children are introverted, I know that there is a struggle a lot of times with interpersonal effectiveness and making and keeping friends. And I was definitely, from a young age, still am to this day, incredibly introverted. I'm a homebody. especially as a child when my parents recall, and even in my own recall, I spent a lot of time alone, a lot of time playing in my room with myself, by myself, in my own little world, usually with my Barbies and whatever little things I needed to do. And a lot of it was more than like real role playing, it was like staging of environments. You know, I had talked in my previous video about how I was a very meticulous person, very organized and cleanly and rigid, you know, even as a child. And my Barbie house was the same way. You know, my beds
I say
were
that I'm
made
very
and my
cleanly, but then
rooms
at the
were
same time, I
organized and
can't
the
help but
dishes
keep
were in the
noticing
dish
these little
rack. And
flecks of
so I think a
leaves
lot
in
of
my
my
freaking
play was
hair because I
actually
let the
more
dogs on
like
the bed last night, and
self-regulatory on like
yeah,
some
I have leaves
microcosmic
all up in
scale
my
where
hair, and it's all their
I
fault.
often couldn't control my home, and not that my home was by any means messy, but it didn't always measure up to my standards because I have weird, I won't say weird, but I have sensory sensitivity issues about things that other people don't have reactions to. So I think before my mom, you know, obviously knowing that I was autistic, she just thought I was really hypercritical of her cleaning, and didn't particularly like it, and would often tell me, well, when you're old enough and you have a house of your own, you can clean it to your heart's desire and how you like it. And I never really understood why it was such a battle of wills to her, because I wasn't trying to be critical. I didn't perceive myself as being critical. I was trying to express a need of like, this is uncomfortable to me. Like, for example, we had a dog who I love, rest in peace, Lucy, and she would poop indoors. She was a like medium dog, so her poops were not like overly huge or stinky or anything. But you know, she would go and poop in like a room that we were never in, like the dining room, for example, because we weren't a formal family. And she would poop in there, and then I would like wander into that room to go look out the window or something, and then I would find like a dried petrified turd or like a crusted dried up pea stain, and like the like wave of filth that would wash over me was so visceral, and like I could not touch the poop. And I know that makes me sound so spoiled. I mean, as an adult now, I clean up my own animals' poop. I have dogs, cats. I've gotten over it. But as a child, I struggled with those things because I was a child. So I don't try to think of myself as like, oh my god, how spoiled were you? I mean, I was literally a child, and an autistic child at that, that had very high standards of need for order and cleanliness to maintain my sense of emotional regulation and to keep my anxiety in check and to feel just well, you know. I just vacuumed before I made this video. I vacuumed twice in the few days I've been here. It's one of the few things I'll do almost every day, and just always kind of tidying up, constantly laundering things, because cleanliness helps me feel in control and helps me regulate. So that's something that since I was a kid has been present. I would, and I still do, but I would make my bed and I would sleep on top of my made bed with a blanket on top of the made bed, because I was very like efficient in my cleanliness. So I thought, why sleep under the covers when you can just like make the bed and sleep on top of it and just have a blankie, and you know, wake up in the morning, fold that blanket at the bottom of the bed, and voila, you've got a clean, you know, room. Like, I really thought I had some life hacks when I was little, but it was also, again, very sensory, because I did not, and still to this day, do not like flat sheets. I like comforters, I like blankets, I do not need flat sheets. I put them on my bed and I lay on top of them, and then I just have the duvet on me. Or if I'm really lazy, I'll lay on top of the duvet and then put just like a little fluffy blanket and sleep that way. But now, mostly as an adult, I'll sleep under a duvet with no flat sheet, even though there is a flat sheet on the bed, so I look human, but it will always just be underneath me, and then underneath that is a fitted sheet, because something about the feel and the purpose of fitted and flat sheets are just so pointless to me. Like, I mean, I need a fitted sheet. I need something to lay on top of a mattress, but the way that it like slimily, like, just, it's not even enough of a blanket to give me warmth, so why the hell is it there? Sorry. Like, I never understood that. So I'm much more of a on top of the bed sleeper, or very superficial level, and my family to this day still makes fun of me for that, and like is even amazed when they see that I've actually slept in a bed to some degree and have not slept on it like on the surface of it with just like heaps of blankets. And what's really funny is, in noticing my daughter and her autism, we have very similar I don't know if it's necessarily related to her autism or just because we are our mother and daughter, and so we have some things in common. But all right, here I come again with another post edit take. Is it post edit? During edit take? It's not post edit because I'm currently editing it. Edit take. I was talking about my daughter and how we sleep similarly. Sorry, I'm looking at myself now in the mirror instead of like here or on the screen. Yeah, my daughter is also a very light sleeper like me. I don't know if that has to do with autism or because we are mother and daughter and maybe we just sleep similarly. Currently, we now sleep together. For a long time, she was in a crib and then in a little toddler bed, but she always wanted to sleep with me, and I'm a forever single, so I'm like, sure, why not come sleep in my queen bed and cuddle with me. But it's been very funny to watch her as she's gotten older. She's almost 5 this year, and she sleeps very similar to me in that she is a light sleeper, and she sleeps very superficially on beds, and she sleeps under covers like I used to. And then she also builds forts of pillows like I do. Like before I had my earplugs, I would just like put like one pillow over my head. So I mean, really, you could easily very much like snuff out my life in the middle of the night because I'm usually sleeping with a pillow over my head. But now that I have the proper earplugs, I don't have to do that. But she does that too. So I just think it's kind of a cute thing that we both sleep very similarly. Although she is a toddler, so she also sleeps very much horizontally on the bed, whereas I prefer to sleep vertically because I'm an adult. So it's basically like me on a sliver of the queen and then her with like 3/4 of it. I am very much a light sleeper. I have loops to put in my ears so I can sleep on my side and not have pressure on my eardrums, because the other normal squishy ones are the pressure on my eardrums is too much. If I sleep on my sides, I have very narrow eardrums. So this is not sponsored. I'm obviously too small of a channel for any kind of sponsor, but I did recently buy those loops. I got them on Amazon. Loop, the earplugs, and they're really good. They're really great for side sleeping. There's no pressure on my eardrum when I sleep because it fits in like, the ringed structure of your ear where the cartilage is. So there's no additional, like normally the squishy earbuds, like whatever you call them, earplugs, will hang out of my ear and then everything gets pushed and it's a very uncomfortable feeling. So I would really recommend Loop for that if you're a sensitive sleeper for sound and you're a side sleeper and you struggle with those kinds of things, or like headsets and stuff. I can't do headsets unless I'm awake. No way could I sleep with a headset at night, like a noise canceling kind of thing. So yeah, let's see. So there was a lot of cleanliness. Something that I noted, like when I did my psychological evaluation, I provided 16 additional notes of just things I found to be necessary information for my psychologist, which I think 16 additional pages organized by like category in and of itself is possibly an indication of autism. But for me, it was more just like knowing there were still time constraints despite the amount of time we had together. It's impossible to offload everything you find might be relevant to a doctor. So I just took it upon myself one day to really, what's the word I'm trying to think? Grint down and bear it, like bear down the hatch. I'm trying to think of the saying that you would say, like I had to force myself to sit down and type this out because I don't like to write anymore. It's traumatic for me, and to revisit, mostly a lot of writing is to revisit traumatic parts of my life. Like even if I'm having to give background information to a psychologist that would be useful, it's hard for me because of the PTSD to not call upon those memories and then also have very visceral physical responses as a reaction to having to revisit those memories. So that's where the PTSD comes in, and that's where my inability to like really write things comes from, because it makes me stay in this like prolonged heightened state while I'm trying to articulate something in a written format, whereas talking about something traumatic in the moment extemporaneously is also traumatic, but I'm able to do it more like fluidly. And you know, the drawback is that it doesn't always come out concise or perfectly structured, and I'm usually not going to go back and edit it, because to rewatch it and then sit there for hours and try to reorganize it is a little bit too much for my brain at this point. So, you know, my videos will definitely be a work in progress as I learn more how to like use this technology, because I do want to evolve and not become a dinosaur. And also as my own healing progresses, because while my autism will never go away, I'm hoping that, you know, in hopefully maybe finding community and making this YouTube channel, in continuing the medication regimen that I'm on that seems to be helpful, that, you know, I will only improve in time in managing my autism symptoms, and also going through therapy currently for the past now 6 months since I've had the diagnosis. I've been working on through various therapies to try to reprocess traumatic memories, and I have a lot. So it's going to be a long process, but I hope that as I make these videos, both my, you know, technological skills and my just ability to articulate and come across as a happier, healthier person is evident, because that's the whole goal of this. I've come from a background very recently in the past couple years that I haven't gotten into yet because I'm not ready to talk about it, of I think really chronic victimhood and feeling helpless. And I don't say that in a way to shame people who are victims, because I myself am a survivor of many things: sexual assault, physical violence, you know, emotional abuse. I think a lot of us are survivors if we're here today for a number of things. But specifically as it pertains to like the sexual assault and domestic assault, those sort of things were very traumatic for me. There was a lot more that went into that I won't talk about now, but it was a lot to deal with, and it did sort of add to or compound the trauma. Like right now, for example, if I'm completely honest, I've forgotten what I'm saying, and that tends to happen a lot. That is part of the PTSD. It is a later in life symptom that I've had, that when I start trying to tap into things that make me anxious and uncomfortable, my brain throws up what I like to call a smoke bomb, and I completely lose track of what I'm saying, and it's just like feels like dementia, for lack of a better word, because I don't know what I was saying, I don't know what I was talking about, and I've tried to get better at rambling until I can pick back up where I left off, if I can actually grasp the concepts again. But typically my brain, I think, throws up like a protective wall where I can't actually pull any words, and so I can only just speak in the moment, and I can't actually think anything. There's no thoughts, just words coming out of my mouth. So maybe some other people experience that, because that's definitely what just happened now in trying to explain about the victim mentality. So I've come from a place where I am a survivor, and in that time I think I really delved into a space of victimhood and chronic victim mentality. And again, I don't say that out of judgment, because I think it's a process that people have to go through in healing. But I don't think, for me, being in that space for the length that I was very healthy. I think it led to hopelessness and helplessness, a prolonged state, which really just negatively impacted my health. And I had to make a conscious effort to break away from the things that I was associating with, the people, the communities that I thought were supposed to help in that situation, were actually contributing to making things worse. So that happened a while ago, a couple years ago, and then it's really just been a couple years now of taking a step back and trying to find a new sense of normalcy now that the waters have settled, so to speak, because there's just a lot that's happened, and I've realized that I can't just open up about everything right away. That tends to be where the predators in my life come in, because my interpersonal effectiveness is pretty bad. I have dealt with a lot of chronic rejection in my life, starting from when I was a little kid. And I think just not knowing how, for lack of a better word, strange I was to other kids when I was just being myself, and possibly how annoying I might have been to other kids when I was just trying to be myself and not picking up on those cues, and then being physically abused by some of those kids because of my behaviors. I mean, because I was never somebody that was like a bully. I wasn't like capable. I've had bullying tendencies now as an adult. Like, I've learned, you know, from being pushed around, kind of how to, ow, sorry, my foot's falling asleep, how to be that. But I don't seek to be the type of person that has harmed me. But I'm not going to say I'm not capable and I haven't learned those things from being bullied myself. It's just kind of the nature of the cycle of abuse, and I'm not proud of it. But at least for when I was a child, you know, and by abuse I don't mean like physical abuse. I mean just being like a shitty person at times, and being a bossy boss, to be specific. Because as a kid, I mean, I was chronically made fun of, picked on physically, verbally. I didn't really always talk about it, I think because I just didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know it was happening. I didn't know it was atypical. I just thought it was my fault. You know, in first grade, I was punched in the eye for asking a kid if I could sit in my seat when the teacher asked us to take our seats, and he wasn't moving out of my chair, which was my assigned seat, and I asked him nicely if I could sit down. And he obviously had his own problems to have lashed out at me like that for just asking to take my seat. But obviously as a kid, I didn't have that level of like insight. So it was just, you know, I got punched in the eye, had a black eye, had to go home, you know, didn't know why. Why did he want to punch me? And it took a long time to realize it had nothing to do with me, you know. Or like the girl that would chronically bully me and threw me on my back in sorry, I'm losing words, in gym. Maybe I need to slow down, because talking about these things, it's helpful, but this is where I think people would think that I was like manic before with my bipolar diagnosis. Because when I become very passionate about something, or I start talking about a special interest, or I really start going off, my speech can become very erratic. It can become very quick. It can become fragmented because I forget what I'm saying, and that would often be held over me like, oh, you're being manic right now. So there's a lot of gaslighting that I am currently trying to undo, and it's not even necessarily anybody's intention to have done that to me. It's just with the information we were given, we thought that's what we were seeing. And now I'm having to reprogram myself to see that this is normal. I'm not manic. I don't have rapid racing thoughts. My speech might be racing because I'm talking about traumatic things that get me hypervigilant and start to make all my bing bongs just like spark off, you know, in my head. And it's like smoke bombs and flashbangs and fireworks. And it's harder and harder to concentrate and get out like a singular sentence, which is why I'm going to therapy, to try to reprocess a lot of these traumas, because they are, over time, having been compounded, they've become incredibly debilitating, to the point that at almost 40, it's like I've significantly regressed from who I was even 10 years ago. And again, I think maybe that's something I should talk on more later. I can see I'm at the 24-minute mark, and I wanted to say a lot more, but I also don't want to make these videos super lengthy and rambly, and I feel like this one was. But hey, at least hopefully I said some shit that made sense to somebody, or at least made sense to me and made me feel accomplished. And if that's the most that I can get done in the world today, I don't think the world will be worse off for it, and I don't think I will. I think if anything, I'll be better off for it. So that's good enough for me. In the meantime, you know, please, if you watch this, feel free to like. It doesn't take much, and it would really help me get my video out there, even if you don't necessarily find me to be particularly compelling with my delivery style. There may be somebody else out there that could relate to me and could benefit from this content, and it would really make me feel happy to know that I could help somebody else, and maybe I could also connect with other people like me. So on that note, please like, if you actually want to see more of my content, subscribe. If you have anything to say, respectfully, please comment. And until then, take care, be well, and I will see you probably not tomorrow, probably in a couple days. And I'll try to have things more succinct, more planned out, as much as I can make that happen. And now I'm gonna lean back and I'm gonna drink this lukewarm coffee because I'm gross and I do that. Okay, bye. Okay, last edit. It's now almost 2 in the afternoon. I think I started this sometime around 10 or 11. So I've been slowly and painfully using my rudimentary understanding of iMovie to try to piece together some semblance of an edited movie. That being said, I think iMovie sucks. I've tried it many times, and I really feel like if there are tools to be used there, they're like hidden amongst the I don't know, some kind of secret codes, because it's not very intuitive for me. So if there's any easier, better video editing software out there, even if it costs a little bit of money, I would love to hear about it, because iMovie is not it for me. So I would love something, if other people have experience with something different than iMovie that is way more user-friendly, intuitive, please recommend it, because I can't do iMovie. I refuse it. Yeah, cool. Thank you.